Hi everybody, today we are going to make an easy mixed media piece. You can make a home decor item like I do, or you can turn this into a greeting card. Here are the two stencils that we're going to use and the napkin. And we're also using a 6x6 mixed media board from TCW. So this napkin's called Candy Dogs and it's from Ninny's Napkins, and it's just got these adorable puppies with these rabbit ears. I cut off them, I peeled off the excess layers, and now I am ready to get going on the project. I'm going to be doing this on the 6x6 mixed media board from TCW. I've put a coat of gesso on that board to prepare it for what I'm planning on doing. Now that I've decided what I want to cut out these dogs a little bit more. So I am water cutting with my fine line brush and just water. I'm going in and around and I'm removing some of the excess. Since the background that I'm going to create is going to be very similar, I'm going to take the colors, the blue-green that's between the ears that you see. This step really isn't necessary if you want to avoid it. I just like taking off the excess. And just little by little, cut a little bit, pull it off. Cut a little bit, put it off. You need very little water actually on the brush in order to do this. So the one napkin you get 4 identical images that you can make multiple cards or multiple home decor gifts, Easter gifts. So there are these cute puppies, and you can cut these apart any way you want to fit. If I was doing this on a 4x4 magnet, I would only maybe have a couple of the dogs. If I was doing it on the front of a mini composition book, I might only have 1 or 2. On this one, I don't want it for the whole one, so I am going to water cut the last puppy off. And you can mix and match. In fact, I didn't end up using this, but I could put it on the composition book. Here's the mini composition book. Or I could separate it on here. And as I'm looking at this now, I'm thinking I could have cut it down the middle and had some on both sides and had a completely different composition. But no fear, I've got 3 more identical images and 1 other napkin, so I can do each one differently. So I am going to glue this down first. And I want it kind of on this side, so I'm going to glue it upside down. But because the napkin goes translucent, you're really not going to lose any of the image. It's going to shine through. I put the matte medium underneath and then on top. Now, if the texture bothers you from the imprint on the napkin, the perforations or that kind of thing, you can iron your napkin. I just really could not be bothered. But if I was doing it and I wanted to be more precise, you could iron it out. I just embrace the texture that's there. I'm going to leave this here because I may need to be gluing something out. Now I'm taking gesso on a brush and I am getting rid of the hard edges. And I'm also getting rid of some of the blue that's back there. This is just preparing the surface for my paint and color layer. And as you can see, I'm not being overly precise, but it does help make it blend better. So I'm going to use turquoise, bright green, and some gesso. And I am going to rub it on with my fingers, mix it right on the panel. And then around where the dogs are, I'm going to use a brush and get closer in there with the color. But the rest I'm going to do with my fingers. Now, this is a relatively small piece, but I'm still doing section by section. I am going to put on this daisy chain, daisy spread stencil. It's a slimline stencil from Crafter's Workshop. And I'm putting it on, and I have a baby wipe, and I'm removing the paint through the stencil. So I get this floral motif throughout the background. Then I'm going to come in and I'm going to add the paint in and around the dog's ears, or the bunny ears, and do the next section, and then the next section. Gessoing the surface is critical to doing this, removing paint through the stencil. Getting some more paint, and I'm just mixing it. And I don't care that this is a mess. It's messy at this stage. Because I know that I'm going to add layers. As I said in the beginning, this is a super easy way of using your mixed media art journaling techniques and creating something beautiful. And here I go again. I'm removing, and you're going to want to turn your baby wipe to a newer section where there's no paint. I'm loving this daisy spread stencil. I have been dying to use it. It's new. It's a new one for 2022. And I just love the effect. I can see myself using this one again and again. Putting on the next section and then removing the paint. You want to be quick before the paint dries, and you need to have it gessoed underneath. This area didn't have any, so I'm just removing it. You do have a little bit of time, especially if you've gessoed it, to lift off that paint. You can also do this on a 6x6 or 8x8 wood panel or canvas. These dogs would also go on a 5x7 canvas panel. So if you don't have the mixed media board, don't let that stop you. This could be just an art journal page. It could be a card. You may have to tweak the composition based on the size. If it's much bigger or much smaller than this. Smaller, you want fewer dogs. A larger piece, you may want more dogs. And you can see up top where the daisies are, because I didn't mix the paint and I mixed it on the board, you're getting different shades, and that's adding interest very easily to your project. And I always like using at least 2 colors of paint with gesso. And I chose the background because the dogs themselves, the yellow, orange, peachy color is opposite the teal green on the color wheel. And I know that's going to look good. I'm colorizing the edges because this is a home decor piece. This is not going to be framed. This is just going to be displayed in the house. and I'll show you how I will display it at the end of the video. Now this is TCW's folded cards, and they're 6 by 6, so you could totally make it on that. Now I looked at my background and I thought that it was a little too vibrant, a little too bright. I want the dogs to be the focal image and the brightest, so I'm giving this a wash of white gesso. I've taken the same gesso I used before and watered it down, and I'm brushing it on and then removing some of it with a baby wipe. I do come back and give it another wash to knock it back even further. I want that pattern, but I don't want it to compete with the dogs. So here I'm coming on, just adding more. And it's an easy way of just pushing it back. If you have something that's too in your face, do a wash. Then I want to make sure this is dry before I go on to the next step. So now I want to colorize the dogs. I'm going to brighten them up a little bit. I have the colors swatched out from my Inktense blocks, so I'm just going to get the brush wet and pick a color that's as close as I can and add color. I like using the Inktense blocks here because they are permanent when dry. So when I varnish this, I don't have to worry about it reactivating. It'll be permanent, just like acrylic paint. And for me, that really makes the difference. If you're doing this on a card and you're not going to worry about varnishing it, or you're going to use a spray fixative, you can use watercolor paints for this step. You can also use acrylic paints. I just find it really easy to use the blocks. Here I'm adding white gesso to add to the white of the ears and the highlights on the dogs themselves. This kind of gives it the painterly effect, so it doesn't look like you've just glued on a napkin. These puppies are just so adorable. And then I'm colorizing the eggs, making those colors pop. Adding some red, adding some purple. And you can see how deepening those colors is helping these dogs stand out from the background. So checking the swatches. Now I'm looking for the colors to use for the dogs, and I'm picking two colors. There's that darker color and then the golden color. So I picked two Inktense blocks, and then I'm just going to mix them and colorize. And I just wet the brush and put it on. And then sometimes I'll be mixing a little bit of gesso in there as well. And that helps achieve that painterly effect. The first time you do this, it's a little scary, but keep practicing. I find that it's very, very forgiving. You can always look back at the original napkin if you get lost or knock back at too much. Now I'm just adding some white details onto the egg with white gesso and my fine line brush. If you don't want to do it with a brush, you can use a Posca pen or gel pen and add those details in. I have several very cute Easter themed napkins that I got from Ninny's Napkins, so I will be doing a few more Easter projects coming soon. I wanted to frame this because this isn't going into a frame. I wanted to put the black around the edges so it looks like it has a little black frame around it. You could have also done that with a dark blue. And as I was looking at it, I didn't like the space that I had below, and then I decided, I'm going to paint some Easter eggs down there. So I'm just using the white gesso and making some egg shapes. And you can add as many or as few as you like. You could also just lower that. If I lowered it to the bottom of the piece, I wouldn't have to do this. But actually I ended up liking this addition. It's just another way of making it your own. And we all can paint an oval, right? Or an egg shape. I could have also cut out egg shapes out of some gel plates or gel prints or collage papers and glued them down. So I still have my Inktense blocks out, so I'm using them to colorize the eggs. And I didn't wait for the gesso to dry, so dry the gesso first and then go over and paint it, and then you get a very bright color. Otherwise it becomes very pastel-y because you're mixing the white in. So I wanted to introduce some of that turquoise that's in the background to the eggs. Add some yellow, orange, whatever color. I could have, and I wish I had, changed the color of the eggs that were with the napkin, and that would have been done in the same way. I could have just painted it out with gesso, and then I could have chosen whatever colors I wanted. If you don't have Inktense blocks, you could do this with acrylic paints. Use what you have. Yes, something might end up on your I want this list, wish list, but use what you have. And then I'm just using the Inktense blocks and the gesso to put some pattern onto the eggs. Nothing too fancy, squiggle lines, dots. You could use, if you didn't want to do this, you could use like Posca paint pens. And I have all the colors, so I should totally use them because I don't use my colored ones very often. So this would have been a perfect place to do it. Now I want to shade around the rabbit ears, and I do come back and do a little bit of shading with a little bit of black, but I did not want it to go dark. I wanted this to be spring-like and Easter-like and happy colors. So I'm using Prussian blue here to add the shadows in. And this helps make the focal image stand up from the background. At this stage, I'm thinking with that background, I like those daisies, but I'm thinking it's not done. And I'm trying to think up what could I be adding to the background. And if I'm unsure, I just do other things that I am sure about and put off that decision making until I have an idea. And then usually it comes. So here I'm just adding a little bit of black. I'm just adding just a smidge amount of it. And then I'm shading on the eggs as well. I wanted to add more, so I grabbed this halftone stencil, and I'm using white paint. Didn't like where I put it, so I just wipe it off quickly, and I can do that because everything underneath is permanent, right? And I'm just adding this on. This is knocking the daisies back a little bit, adding another pattern, adding another layer of interest. I was thinking about doing script, but this is a perfect alternative, this Halftones slimline stencil from Crafter's Workshop. It isn't, barely get it put away, and I've grabbed it out. And then because I got some white where the black was around the edges, I'm reapplying the black, or attempting to. Then I grab my black Posca pan, and I'm just going to go around the eggs. That was my thought. I was just going to do the eggs and darken the eyes and nose of the pups. But I end up outlining, sketchily, the dogs as well. I'm not sure if I would do that again if I was making it again. I think I like it without the lines around the puppy dogs. What do you think? So I'm just adding some sketchy lines in, nothing too solid. And I knew I was going to varnish this because it's a home decor piece. So I didn't want to use charcoal pencil that you've seen me doing some sketchy lines with before. So I wanted, that's why I've chose the Posca pen here. So I stamped Happy Easter with my wooden block letters, and I stamped it on card so then I can play with where I want it. But on the piece, I am using acrylic paint, and I'm using not black but Payne's gray, which is a blue gray, and not quite as harsh as the black. And I have a baby wipe that I can remove if I make a mistake, and then I clean off the paint, the acrylic paint off the stamp. I go wipe it off and then put it down. The S is upside down, so here you can see I've taken the baby wipe and I can remove it without destroying my background. Whoop, let's try that again. And I don't attempt to make it straight. I was going to make this say Hoppy Easter instead of Happy Easter, but I forgot. I'm taking Prussian blue and shading around the edge. It's just adding that little bit of blue haze there that I have around the rabbits, and I like that look better. Now I grabbed some metallic cobalt teal paint from Artist Loft, and I'm watering it down, and yep, I'm going to splatter. But I grabbed some of the napkin, and I'm going to cover that up, the puppy dogs up, and I'm just going to splatter a little bit there, just to add the darker color, and just one more layer. I didn't like that big splotch, so I'm going in and cleaning it up, and then splatter. So once everything was dry, I'm taking gel medium gloss, this is from Crafter's Workshop, and putting a coat. It goes on kind of cloudy, but it dries clear. And here it is once it's dry. It has a little bit of a sheen and it's protected. And here's how I will display it. You can get these little hooks, and I'll put a link if I can find it in Amazon. I know it's in Amazon.ca. I don't know if it's in .com. Love this. I have this sitting on my counter, and then I can sub out each different season. No frame required. I can also put a magnet on the back, that peel and stick magnet, and use it as a fridge magnet. So thank you so much for joining me. Until next time, go get creative.